for your time. We are going to get started. We're at quorum, so thank you folks who are able to make it. I'd like to call the meeting to order by beginning with the land acknowledgement. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. We've received regrets from Renee, Councillor Hinch, and Councillor Young. I now invite Anzio to recite the affirmation, the African Nova Scotian affirmation.
Good evening. So I just wanted to acknowledge the rich contributions of people of African descent to the history, culture, and heritage of Nova Scotia. And if we stand tall, it is because we stand on the shoulders of our many ancestors that paved the way for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. At this point, I'd like to introduce you to our new committee members. I don't see Amber, but I do see Carlotta. Carlotta, welcome. Please introduce yourselves and let us know which community you represent.
Hi, I'm Carlotta Weymouth. I'm not sure what community I represent. I don't think it was ever said to me, but I live in Dartmouth and I'm on committees in East Preston, North Preston, and all over.
Thank you, Carlotta. We appreciate your representation of multiple communities and your presence here with us. Item number 2 is approval of minutes from the March 20, 2025 meeting. So at this point of the agenda, please bring forward any errors or omissions from the minutes of the previous meeting. Do members have any errors or omissions to the minutes of March 20, 2025? No? Okay. Can I please get a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes, please? Moved by Daryl. Can I get a seconder, please?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Jay Reese. The minutes of March 2025 are approved as circulated. All those in favor say aye, and those opposed say nay.
Aye.
Aye.
I declare the motion is carried. On to the approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. Dorothy, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
No additions or deletions have been received by the clerk's office, but we do have a request to move up 1731 immediately after the approval of the order of business.
So the request is to move 7.3.1 up to before number 4, business arising out of minutes. Okay. Do I need to move that, a motion for that? Okay. Can I have a mover and a seconder to approve this change to the order of business?
I'll move.
Moved by Andrew. Can I get a seconder, please?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Jay Reese. That the agenda has been, that the addition or change to the agenda has been approved. Do members have any additions or deletions to the agenda? No. If there are none, can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
I'll move.
Moved by Daryl. Seconded by Carlotta. Thank you. That the agenda be approved as amended. All those in favor say aye, and those who are opposed say nay.
Aye.
I declare the motion carried. So on to the moved item number 7.3.1, presentations. We have invited over Reverend Dr. Leonard Anderson, Curtis Wiley, Ms. Gina Jones here to present, Ms. Gina Jones-Wilson here to present today, representing Upper Hammonds Plains in our discussion. Thank you folks for making it out today. We really appreciate you taking the time and expensing your energy to be with us tonight. As we shared in the information in our communications, we really want this to be an opportunity for you to have a platform for your community's issues and initiatives, and an opportunity for us to have some dialogue and support your work as advocates.
Yeah, it'll be next slide.
So Krista will get you all set
And I
up
can
there.
change your display settings if you'd like to see it differently.
Just a little bit.
Oh,
This one.
that would be your next slide.
Yeah.
So when you go through, oh. I don't know if that helps. You do it that
Oh,
way.
that's one. And then I'll just go down.
Uh, so if you're going there, you just would click on this one. Or just use this button here. So you can go backwards, forwards.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you so much.
No worries.
Thank you so much. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for the opportunity to come and to address you tonight. As you mentioned, Mr. Chair, we have Mrs. Gina Joan Wilson representing our community of Upper Hammonds Plains, and the Community Development Association President. Mr. Curtis Wiley is the President of the Community Land Trust, and he will introduce himself formally. And I want to acknowledge the presence of my mother as well. Putting myself on a timer so that I respect your time restraints. It's bad when you put a preacher on a mic, and I'm going to be sensitive to that. Thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me to come and talk about an unbeatable force that is in the community of Upper Hammonds Plains. I believe we are a resilient people, and we try to bring joy to the struggle. There is a struggle in our story, but I just love that photo, and therefore I want to talk about the joy of resilience. I make this statement to begin my presentation. The struggle for justice is an ongoing battle, a relentless pursuit that never truly ends. It continues generation after generation, as marginalized communities find themselves constantly fighting for their rights, their dignity, and equality. Despite progress, the system of powers often resists change, forcing these communities to persistently advocate for justice they deserve. Their fight is not just a moment, but a movement, one that requires unwavering resolve and solidarity. The road is long, it's been very long, 25 plus years. But the pursuit of justice is a journey that must be walked, and we have boots on the ground. No matter how challenging the path, we are here, UHP strong. And we're asking you, the advisory committee, to help us advocate to right the wrong of HRM. And I think it does not move. Okay, let me try this. No. So just manually click on it? Sure.
Have to do that.
I can do that, no problem. All right, so I take back my 30 seconds. And so the court decision in 1999 held that the Halifax Water was liable because of their CEO at the time, Mr. Carl Yates, misrepresented the community that any savings would be returned to our community to provide the water footage. Yates was found responsible on the basis of negligent misrepresentation. However, I believe that HRM and the province of Nova Scotia share equal, if not greater, responsibility. Why? Because nothing was done by Halifax Water without HRM Council's approval. Nothing done without the Department of Municipality or Municipal Affairs approval. They intentionally denied residents of Upper Hammonds Plains full fire protection. Despite having the funds raised by us, secured by us, they installed hydrants not rated for fire fighting. This created a false sense of safety of which they are accountable. For the past 25 years, Halifax Water and the Nova Scotia government has profited from this neglect and this deception by providing inadequate infrastructure in Upper Hammonds Plains. This is absolutely unacceptable. We don't need apologies. We're not looking for symbolic gestures. We need real substantive action. We need pipes that flow with water. Let me move on. And so I can talk about legacy in action and the spirit of resilience, and that you can't have resilience without resistance. Well, they've helped us with our muscle in that sense. But in the shadow of historic wildfires that raged through our region, the community of Upper Hammonds Plains still stands without fire hydrants, living daily with the threat, but without the tools to fight it. You will see that perspective is from HRM, from Halifax proper, looking out to Upper Hammonds Plains. That's where the smoke rises from. The 2023 wildfires raised awareness of the absence of fire hydrants on sections of the Park Walk Road. What sections? I'm so glad you asked. Sections where non-Black people live don't have the fire hydrants. Park Walk Road runs through the community of Upper Hammonds Plains, and there are Caucasian members that reside on that street, and there's African Nova Scotians who reside on that street. And it is blatantly obvious on which side of the street you live. I would invite you to journey to Upper Hammonds Plains to witness. It was at the Upper Hammonds Plains community meeting that residents were informed that the fire hydrants in our community not only cannot be used for fire suppression. We were told by the fire department, I quote, "They are only there for training purposes," end quote. So these current fire hydrants are only cosmetic because the pipes are not big enough. We refer to them as dummy hydrants. There are no fire hydrants on Anderson Road. Water infrastructure should be a priority to transform and to protect our community as well. Hearing Halifax Water's account of past events left me in shock, and the residents. I couldn't even respond appropriately that night because they presented a very interesting narrative that we knew all along the fire hydrants didn't work. I'll get into that later. And so it's not surprising for us. I just want to show you that there's no emergency exits, there's no egresses out of our community. This is what it looked like on that day when everyone was trying to get out of our community. Fire on both sides of the streets as we were exiting. I have video footage. I'm not going to show it tonight, but it's the footage that was captured by residents on Anderson Road as they were fleeing their homes. And again, this is an area without fire hydrants at all. If time permits, I would love to come back and show you how close the fire was to our backyards. Upper Hammonds Plains water main. It received news recognition on the Evening News Global, CTV. Yes. We were speechless that the very fire hydrant across from the historic first all-Black volunteer fire department in Canada does not work. We would have the chief of fire come to our community and insult our intelligence, saying that all the firefighters know that they don't work. Actually, they have a system in place to tell them as they go to fight fires which fire hydrants work and don't work. And I say, so that's why they come here repeatedly and try to hook up to our fire hydrants and have nothing. Thank God for Sabrina Ellison, our lifelong resident of our community, with a camera taking pictures as they stand in the middle of the street. Why won't any water come out of these fire hydrants? It's not a figment of my imagination. This fire right here happened after the wildfire. There was an explosion in our community. Yet again, the guy at the top, he knows, but the men on the street don't know, and they're trying to hook up to the fire hydrants. And again, in a panic, what is going on here? There's a glaring disparity. Two different realities on the same street. That's Park Walk Road. Can you tell which one has black residents and which have white? No, because it's the same street. The same street, but two different realities. The black residents receive inadequate water infrastructure, including fire hydrants not rated for fire suppression, while others receive full protection. I mean, they have pipes that are 16-inch. They have fire hydrants that are every 400 to 500 feet. Then you cross into the black community, an invisible.
When insurers start to refuse the fact that there is this type of fire protection, and we'll see potentially increases in many of our community members' insurance premiums. Just to show that how big of a scale and how entangled this issue is in the everyday lives of people in our community. So today I'm going to talk a bit about collective power in action, because despite all of the kind of things that are happening that are negative that we have to advocate for, we're working just as hard to create economic resilience and opportunities for our community at the same time. So I'm going to talk about a large-scale development project. In July, CMHC announced a cooperative housing development program. The site that you're looking at there, the large kind of octagon shape, that is the site of where the co-op will be. It is not going to have water service, right? Because it's too far from the street. And there's about 500 units being built at this site, not on these multiple sites. The site that we're proposing to build on is about 136 units. But all of these units have no water, because the water line isn't even in the street here. It stops in our community. And so even if you're within the water service zone, that buffer, it doesn't matter back here. These people we're all on wells and septics in this area. But because of modern technology, we're able to still build homes that are on well and septic. And so over the last few months, we submitted an application in September, and we just announced that we did successfully secure $61.2 million from CMHC to build 136 co-op homes in our community. This represents the largest Black-led housing development in Canada of its kind, and it's happening right in our community. And so yes. Thank you. Yeah, we're really excited about being able to lead this transformational project. We've incubated a new housing co-op, a new organization that will act as the operator. And so we'll be able to start construction on these units by the end of the month. The site is actually pad ready. So there's pads where the homes will go. It's already permitted. So it's a story about when we changed the zoning, this was permitted during that period, right? So when the community changed the zoning in the last year, there were 945 units approved. These 136 were of that pool. So we're actually purchasing permitted site that was kind of, done during this time that we were trying to close development. And this site will be community owned. The Community Land Trust is made up of members from our community, and this will be a community stewarded asset forever. And that's not it. So we're also looking at the little Pockwalk area. This is abutting the co-op development project that you just saw. These 5 parcels of land are historical parcels in our community. They were owner unknown, but became Crown lands in October of 2022, I applied to the province to purchase these Crown lands under the Crown Lands Act. That had never been done by a community organization. A pitch like that had never been made up until that point. And so the government was largely silent for a year and a half. But in October, they gave us permission to begin site feasibility and pre-development planning on these parcels. And so what we did here was actually trace the titles back to the original settlers. Right, so you can see these circles kind of zooming in slowly on those parcels, and you can see the historic names that were on them. Then we researched those names in the Nova Scotia archives. These are the actual landing documents of our ancestors, and their names correspond with those parcels of land. So we could actually validate that these were parcels of land that were supposed to be conveyed to refugees from the War of 1812. And we've moved forward on this project. So we began site feasibility and pre-development planning. Now you can see potential massing for 2 parcels of land there. Just on the left-hand side, significant transformation, right, that we're proposing to construct in our community. This, again, has no access to water, right? So just to show you the barriers that our community faces when it comes to these projects, we could have a significantly more, like a lot more density on these parcels if we had access to water at least, right? But we don't even have the ability, even if we wanted to have water here, because the water lines don't even go this far into our community. They cut off at a certain point. But it's just to show you that we are very serious about what we're doing in our community, and we're doing it with really, really significant intention. And I believe that what we are doing is going to prove to other African Nova Scotian communities that transformation is truly possible for us, and that we can use the community land trust model to create transformation for our African Nova Scotian communities, and that we can reclaim land in our communities, right, when we're organized, and we can create transformational projects like this one and start to like vision and actually believe that we can do these types of large scale developments. And then last, we partner with our other organizations, the UHPCDA and of course EBC. We're conducting a similar site feasibility process on a parcel of the church's land. So we talked about the parking lot area. We are actually doing a formal site feasibility and pre-development planning process for that parcel to see if it is, you know, if it has the ability, if it's feasible to develop on as well. So we're creating those partnerships, just kind of showing that, you know, there's a number of projects in our pipeline. The co-op, of course, was successful. So now we're really excited about being able to create more transformation. We also have a 7 megawatt solar farm project that we are working on right now. We applied to the province and created a memorandum of understanding between our organizations. The community will own, we already have the Shabukdo-Pakwak wind farm, which was a successful renewable energy project. But now we are proposing to put a 7 megawatt solar farm, which is approximately 35 acres on the Melvin land tract, one portion of the Melvin land tract called Big Melvin. And the community will own 51% of the partnership in that development. And it will also generate revenue back to the community for 25 years. So with all that being said, I just wanted to end by, water infrastructure, fire protection, flooding mitigation, egress routes, traffic, safe streets. These are all things, and I'm glad that Devin and ANSCAP is working with us now. But I wanted to show you the timeline of how it got to the place for us to be able to even start talking about these issues, right? And it began in May of 2021 when we urged Councillor Lovelace to make the motion to amend the zoning. That's when it first started, right? And I've kind of detailed the timeline of how long it has taken for us to get to a place where we are finally starting the conversation about addressing these needs in our community. And meanwhile, organizations like my own have no other option but to drive forward. And it's just so frequent that policy is not catching up to the speed at which we are moving in our community. And that's really concerning for me, especially as you see the scale of the types of things we are able to do. And we really want the municipality to be able to lift and support and propel our projects forward, rather than having to kind of go back and try to make sure that there's policies that will fit the things that we're already doing, right? So had we started this conversation about water infrastructure in 2022, there could have been pipes in the ground. We're talking 4 years later here, right? There's a lot of time that has been just dwindling when we could have been making significant progress. And so trust me, I'm getting over that part because we're doing it now and I'm happy about it. But it's hard for me to give that up, especially as we are continuing to put together projects like I just showed. So really grateful to be able to speak to you all. There is really exciting things. It's not all negative, I promise. There's a lot of amazing things that are happening. Our community has come together in a very profound way and are showing up and mobilizing in so many different organizations and activities in our community. And it's really something incredible to be a part of and witness. So I encourage you all to come to Upper Hammonds Plains, perhaps, and visit us. And for that, I'll just leave it there. So thank you.
Thank you, Curtis. Questions?
Questions? Yeah.
Questions from our members, please.
The community meeting in August 2024 about the lack of fire protection. Is HRM helping with this, or what happened with that?
Yeah, so it was at that meeting where it was really told to us that, you know, the fire hydrants were ornamental in nature. And it was like, we almost didn't even have an outrage at that point because we were like trying to process what we had just heard. But that's really where we got this information, right? It was kind of a post follow-up wildfire kind of conversation. And that is when we found out that the fire hydrants could not be used rated for fire suppression. So it's been since then that we are, you know, really, I don't even know how to articulate it, you know, really frustrated is, I guess, not a strong enough word, but that about that issue, right? Because of the wildfires, because of the history of the fire department in our community, and that false sense of security, right? That we're now trying to reconcile with, and find solutions for going forward. But yes, there is work happening on that topic, but you know, it has come at us having to go to many, many meetings, right? Just to get to a point where now I believe, you know, it's going to be 2 years before we have the plan. And then once we have the plan, we have to, you know, find funding for this elaborate infrastructure plan, which I know will be more, you know, more barriers, hurdles for us to get over. Yeah.
I have a question
Yeah,
for
sure.
Mr. Anderson,
Pass.
the pastor. But first of all, I want to thank both of you for your presentations. Very, very well done and informative. And second, I just want to say before I ask my question, I had the opportunity of sitting in one of those town hall meetings in another capacity a few months back, and hearing those concerns from the community. Fire was present, Water Commission was present, and you two both were present. And I got to say, personally, I was astounded just to learn and hear that the information that the fire hydrants weren't adequately sufficient to, you know, to get the pipes to run the water through. It just blew me. It just blew my mind. Anyway, I left that meeting like you. My blood was boiling because it's another example of historic oppression and systemic racism, and it was just so blatant. Anyway, I was a little perturbed. Anyway, my question is, you mentioned earlier, Pastor Anderson, that council had voted against fire hydrants. I think I missed the entire question. What was that vote for?
In our legal records, this was taken, the water decision excerpt. It was in August 16th of the 1999. So it says that Jamie Hammond of Halifax Water wrote to Marvin McDonald, the Nova Scotia government, proposing 4 possible scenarios for use of the savings, because we got lower tender amounts that reduced our frontage to 0. Sorry, we got lower tender. Thank you, tender. So because it was lower than projected, we were promised that all savings would go back to the community. And so Halifax Water went to the province and HRM to say there's 4 possible things that we can do with this money. 1, we can reduce the frontage to 0 for the residents of Upper Hammonds Plains. 2, we can add the rest of Anderson Road and Anderson Court to this project. 3, we can add the oversized pipes to add for future extra capacity and fire protection. 4, we can add full fire protection system. They said no to all 4 scenarios. And therefore, those in the meeting, again, the Director of Engineering from HRM, Mr. McDonald, the Department of Municipal Affairs, Nova Scotia government, Jamie Hammond, and Carl Yates of the Halifax Water. They did not inform Doug Sparks, who represented our community, or our lawyer at the time, Perry Borden. They were not allowed to be at that meeting. Perry Borden now serves as the Chief Justice of Nova Scotia. So I asked the CAO, if your memory doesn't serve you correctly, ask the Chief Justice. I'm sure his memory will recall the events.
Thank you for that response. I have a follow-up question as well. What did the fire service say to the blatant fire hydrants on one side of Pok Pok Road being sufficient and on the other side in the Black community not being sufficient? What was their answer for that? I'm just curious.
It was the size of pipes,
Was-
and I would say they deliberately did not run the pipes through the street. They went through the woods, and they come out on down by Madeline Simons Middle School. Again, that was part of the bigger plan. They knew a school was being built in the community, of which we had to fight for it to be named Madeline Simons after the first African Nova Scotian teacher. They wanted to call it the Hammonds Plains Educational Center. Not on our watch, not in our backyard. I digress. And so they wanted the water to go by the school so that they could be on running water. And it came out of White Hills Run and turned left. So that's why everyone else on the Pok Pok Road has the 16-inch pipes, and that's why they can serve every 400 feet. There's 13 fire hydrants on that small stretch, but 3 in the entire community of Upper Hammonds Plains, and none on Anderson Road or Anderson Court.
Wow. Well, thank you.
I just want to add one point to that too. One response that we continue to receive is that, they show us a map and they say, 80, all of this area within HRM doesn't have fire hydrants, right? Which really is tone deaf, right? It's another thing. And we repeatedly hear this, right? Well, there's these systems in place to fight fires. Most of HRM doesn't have fire hydrants, and that may all be true, right? But no community is closer in proximity to the source of every single person's drinking water that comes from the lake that's right there. And no other community has had land expropriated and had to fight in court for 20 years to get access to that water. Right. So it's really tone deaf when they say that to us. Right. They show us a map and talk about how many acres or how many parcels, what have you, are served by, this rotating kind of truck system where they fill up and keep going and all of that, which I guess they just want us to be satisfied with. Right. But that's so tone deaf and doesn't take into consideration the fact that we've had these fire hydrants and not didn't know they were adequate and all of the other things. Like it's the language sometimes, a lot of times, that really just cuts rather deeply and is insulting, right? For us to just be okay with that, right? Considering all of the circumstances and all of the history, right? That informs, that position that we have with fire infrastructure. So.
I just want to ask about, Pastor Lenny, you got something else on that?
Only to say that no other community had to take legal action to get the basic. I'm not talking about fire protection, the basic necessities, but we won the case, and that's why. So we thought we won, and then we rested on our laurels, like, oh, we won in 1999. It was celebratory, but we didn't know that it came with the reduction of pipes, which meant the fire hydrants would not be able to suppress fires. It was just a point I wanted to bring clarification to. Mr. Howe.
So I just want to, when you guys were showing the plan about the development, and thinking about the new housing development being further back away from the road, away from access to the pipes, and even that access not being far enough to even be considered there. And then also thinking about the that space that you mentioned, that space you mentioned about for the what do you call those things? The sun, the
solar
the
panels.
solar panels, yes. And I was just wondering when you're mentioning that, how does how does the rest of this conversation factor into that? When we're thinking about the devastation of those fires, and that and knowing the reality of what's possible there, how does that factor into the planning and the development for those projects?
It's a great question. So there's a real big concern about the developments that are happening, what we consider to be back the road, right? Because they're past the water source. But the truth is, these 500 units were going to get built regardless of if we built them or some other developer built them. And if somebody else had to build those 136 units, they would have never been affordable housing, and they would have caused a further acceleration and displacement of our own people, right? So we're carving out a piece. I mean, like less than 20% piece of all the units that are being built that will be ours, right? So the truth is that these units are getting built regardless, right? And so we just need to get, for me, it was about us getting into that, whatever was happening. But it's definitely concerning. We had talked to the Halifax Fire about another dry hydrant in that area, just because of the amount of density that is coming to that particular node, if you will, in our community. And it's something we're certainly conscious about. We are, the wells, because it's wells, right? There's 5 of them. The wells are being designed such that if we do eventually get water infrastructure, it can be hooked up to what's happening. So we want to be able to eventually be able to hook into the water if we get it up there, or when we get it up there. I'll try to speak it into existence. But those are the only things we can basically, attempt to mitigate for the future, right? And the truth is, all of these units do not have a demand. Most of the units in our community that are being built aren't on the water main, right? Because they're too far back from the line. The image of the apartment building that Pastor was showing, that is on the water main, right? So we do have some of the larger scale developments that are on the water line, but many of the developments are actually not even on the water line because of, the inadequacy is one thing. That's one thing, but there's policy that restricts you too, right? There's barriers, restricted legislator by zoning barriers or bylaws that if you're not within a certain distance of that pipe, you can't actually use it, right? Even if you have frontage that is on that parcel or that's on the road, right? In the buffer zone, if your house is too far back, you have to drill a well regardless. Yeah. Did that answer your question? I'm not.
Oh yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
And then just in a different vein, I'm thinking about this challenge that you're facing in Upper Hammonds Plains, but also in my viewing, unprecedented way that the communities come together as well. I just want to ask and see, how can we get this understanding and this collective work that you've done? How can we work together with our other communities to look at, making sure that communities that don't have water yet might be looking at that and seeing, what are the issues that came up? What are the ways that we can avoid it so that this doesn't happen again there as well? And then also support your community in the work that you're still doing in that fight also. So I guess I'm just looking at how can we work together with our other Black communities to work together to be able to understand where the pitfalls were, what are the challenges, and how can we support each other?
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective, because it can get lost on me that's where we're trying to get, and it's a vision that I know we all share, right? I think I love the moment when we're able to promote that, there's this great strategy that we have and we're working on implementing it, right? Like that would be a great thing for us to be able to say that we're doing. And I think we're on the way there, but it's just like, it's going to be years, but based on, kind of the current momentum. And that's frustrating, right? Because the co-op will probably be completely constructed by the time, because that's going to take 24 months, believe it or not, because it's already pad ready. And there still will, we'll only just be finishing the planning of what this water plan would look like, right? So that's what I mean about this sense of urgency and wanting to get things done. So I think when we're there, communities will be able to say, yeah, like we really believe that it's possible to create these types of infrastructure projects in partnership with our municipal government and others, province and federal government potentially. I think a big thing too is, being able to show that, these types of things we can secure, big projects as African Nova Scotian communities. Granted, it is a tremendous amount of work, right? It is to get to this point. So we need to be setting clear expectations with folks. But I think the idea, just the realization that this is possible will help some of our communities where there is a lot of tension and friction to, perhaps lay down their swords and say, look, there's a bigger future and a brighter future for us if we can work together.
Yes,
Could-
could I,
Sure.
a couple more questions?
Yeah.
You do have legal help, right? Do you have legal counsel?
Yeah.
Did your legal people consider the, it's called the UN Working Group of Experts on People of African Descent? And what they've been doing is they've done, I can read what they've done. They're a special from the United Nations, and they come in and they pick Nova Scotia, African people in Nova Scotia, and they say that they're going to work to help. And they've done that. They've done many reports, and they are very proactive in assisting. And what I wanted to know was, did anybody consider contacting them? And also the idea of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms of the federal government, it seems that they seem to be missing in this. And so what I was wanting to ask is, I know the frustration. We're working hard. Keep going. God bless you. The idea is that a different direction whereby you have to be hardball in terms of your legal rights. And the legal rights are not being protected. I feel that here right now. Your legal rights are not being protected. So your lawyer should get help from the UN. And they have a group set up to help African people of African descent. And it's called the UN Working Group of Experts on People of African Descent. So if you're interested, they can go for it. Now, my other point is the Crown land and utilizing the land to build houses. And it was 160 some million for 100 and some houses. You went 61 houses?
61 million for 136 houses.
Yeah, the math
Okay.
confused me.
That's
So
all right.
I'm not a math
A
person.
lot of numbers.
Now, the thing is that the individuals, families who originally owned the land, one of the things that happens with us is that the government comes in and says owner unknown, and they take it free, and we take it back from them. But the original owners, the people that are left behind, have been disenfranchised. Has there been any way to look? Might not be your responsibility, but has that been considered that the original owners, either you would lease the land from them, for them from their families, or they would sell it to your organization? Has that been considered? Not that it's not a criticism of what you've been doing.
That's a great question. It's a really good question. There's complexity to that. Thank you for your comments about the UN Working Group of Experts. I am familiar with them because they led to the creation of the Land Titles Initiative, which is a project that I've been involved in for a couple of years, several years at this point. So that's a great piece of advice that I hadn't considered, but perhaps Pastor already thought that one through. To your point about descendancy and conveyance and I guess, reparations, right? In a sense. So the parcels where we're building the co-op, we're purchasing from a speculator. Like this person was, permitting units in our community. So those particular lands belong to him and we're buying them from him. He's not from our community or looks like us. But those historical parcels, definitely, right? So those historical parcels, and this is where the idea of a community land trust is really important, right? Because not one family or one person is going to be successful in asserting an interest on a parcel of land. It has to be communal for us to be even considered by the province, right? Because they're going to try to find, they do not want to be exposed to liability, right? If they convey something to one person and then someone comes out of the woodwork and says, well, that was my great uncle's friend or something, so that's why we're really trying to prove that the collective voice is what we can use to gain possession of these properties. And then as a community, we'll be able to decide on our own terms what that looks like, right? I don't have the answer for you. I don't. For those historical parcels, we're talking about people from 1812, like there would be thousands of heirs, thousands of beneficiaries. It would never be able to be probated, right? So that's where this kind of communal voice comes into play. But there's other parcels in our community that aren't as far back, right? And there's so we will be we haven't figured out exactly how we'll do that, but we'll be sharing you as we trip and fall through figuring that out, because it's complex, right? People are going to be really passionate about that. And we need to be able to, we want to be able to restore people's what's rightfully theirs. But because the families are so large at times, it can be difficult to try to think about that. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. The HRM counselor for the Hammonds Plains, Upper Hammonds Plains, have they been supportive? Because we're interested in that. Have they been supportive? What have they been doing? Good, bad, indifferent?
He's new. Yeah. I can just say I haven't met with him. We worked a lot with Pam, with Councillor Lovelace, right? Over the years, but really haven't had the opportunity yet to work with our current councillor. Not yet. Yeah, thanks everyone. I know that went way over your time. But, oh, you have one?
Curtis, yeah, before you go, just a quick question. While I have time, Maps, do I have time? Oh, okay. Shoot, I forgot my question. Well, exactly, probably help you. Oh yes, the housing units that are currently under construction. Are any of those being allotted for African Nova Scotian families, or are they just?
No.
Okay.
Only ours now, right?
Right.
Only ours is dedicated. There is that other affordable housing, and I say this with air quotes because it was not set up that way, right? When that development was created, they were selling those units for $425,000 each, right?
Right.
Again, and now all of a sudden, because there's funding in affordable housing, now all of a sudden, and the laneway is named Wiley Lane, just for everyone's understanding, but they also don't put that anywhere, right? And so it's just these constant slaps in the face, right? No, they've never engaged with our community. We got really upset with them at one point about the name because it was called Casa Villa in the Woods is what it was originally called. Now it's just the Woods, right? As if that's supposed to be better. But they're touting all of this affordable housing, and they've never engaged our community, not once. They've never been to our community center. I've tried to make sure that some of our community members can get these affordable units, and I don't know where any of that has gone. So it's just false. I don't even, so we have these actors in our community, literally, but ours will be.
So it's not affordable housing, it's just housing.
So most of the units, so our development and the Wiley Lane are the only affordable housing units. Wiley Lane is not open yet.
Wow.
Ours will be at cost housing, right? And then we're going to potentially be providing deeper subsidies to members of the CLT, right? And there's a whole process to become a member of the Community Land Trust. Yeah.
And what about, like you mentioned, it's called the Woods or the Woods now. What about street names? Because I know in Beachville, where I'm from,
Right.
there's a whole new development out there, and I was out there recently, and I see family names like Shepherd Run and Higgins Drive, and I haven't seen any Wright Street yet or Wright Avenue, but maybe that's because there's one in Burnside. But
Yeah.
I'm just curious about that. Is it any plans
Yeah.
for street names after family or African Nova Scotians?
Yeah, definitely. That's something that we are right now engaged in, because the property that we're purchasing already has 3 names, but we intend to rename those streets. But there's a number of other streets that are not, that don't represent the community at all. So we're looking to kind of, work with those developers. So far, there hasn't been too much of an issue. Like Wiley Lane was not called Wiley Lane initially, but they let us. They tried to extend an olive branch, and the community voted to name it that. But we have a long list, and we will be changing the names, some of the names, especially for the developments in the area that I mentioned, to reflect positive things like the ancestors and positive affirmations, as well as the names of some of our historic leaders. Yep.
Thanks, Curtis.
Thank you both, and thank you, Miss Gina, as well, for giving the presentation. I just had a question when it comes to the Upper Hemmons Plains Community Land Trust, because I know that they were trying to kind of build a positive relationship with Halifax Water.
Yeah.
So, and also the other community associations as well. I was just wondering, since all of everything that happened came about, how that relationship has kind of changed. Is it more stagnant? And has Halifax Water actually addressed the full extent of like the land expropriation when they come to the table in the meetings? Just for the record.
I can just start by saying that I don't want to say there's no relationship, but there's very little, right? The Melvin Land Tract Protection Society, which is also now an active organization, historical organization that revolves around the expropriation, met with Halifax Water about the solar farm project. And my understanding was that meeting was positive. I mean, do we have a close relationship with Halifax Water? No. Are they willing to meet with us at times? Certainly. They have a lot of, there's been no accountability taken, not seriously. And I think that's part of the problem. Like, we kind of can't get over it until we kind of acknowledge the elephant in the room. Even though, we understand that these people that work inside of this institution, this agency, were not the people that made these decisions. We know that, right? But the fact that we can't just start with the fact that they acknowledge that these things happened or did happen, rather than kind of skirting around them, which could be for a number of reasons, right? Could be because they're ignorant, could be because they just want to avoid potential liability. I don't know, right? I think that the leadership in Halifax Water genuinely wants to fix this issue, but Halifax Water is under a significant amount of pressure, I think, in a number of different areas. That's not to give them a pass, because there is, it still doesn't feel like there's a sense of significant urgency, right? I feel like the empathy is still lacking in some way. I don't know how they can show that more to us, but I don't feel like they really ever get us. Sometimes it feels like they're just going through the motions. I don't know, and I don't know how else to put it, but they're good. They seem like very reasonable, intelligent people. But that trusting part to try to make this stuff happen is troubling still. What do you think, Pastor? Yeah. Yeah, look, Halifax Water has smart people working there, right? And I think that they could probably make this happen, but I know that there's a number of, bureaucracy and all the other things that happen. But yeah, it just doesn't seem like we just don't know where we're headed at times, right? And that I think is part of the problem why it still feels rocky.
I would totally agree with Mr. Wiley, and I think my area of mistrust, if I could be very honest and transparent, is when they came with a new story. That's how they led, not acknowledging the errors of the past. Again, we know that the current CEO was not there then, you know, but there was no acknowledgement of wrongs done. And maybe that's because of liability, but again, we need to name the elephant in the room.
Mm.
But please don't try to rewrite history when we have court documents that prove you were found liable, right? And so you can't. That it's very hard. It's very hard for me. And what Mr. Taylor said about I've had a lot of pressure from community members to take legal action. I'm trying to believe that their best intentions. I'm trying to believe that, and that's why I've been dragging my feet on the yes. We now have enough for class action. I'm trying to avoid that approach now that we're working very closely with ANSCAP with the time. But again, what my plea to you as an advisory council is to help us convey the sense of urgency. And because when I even asked, I said, have you applied? Because Minister Laura replied to me and said, well, HRM hasn't even applied for the critical funding. And so, what is this? The minister says nothing has come from me. So I thought we were leaving this meeting and you're going to be applying tomorrow. Like I don't know why. What? How is this not a priority? And they came back to the community saying, well, we're going to give, we applied for funding, we secured funding, and we have money to give everybody the instrument they need in their homes to boost the water pressure. Okay, thank you. That's great because my mother can't wash her dishes and have the washer on at the same time, can't take a shower. And, like when I talk about water pressure issues, Mr. Marty David is very concerned that the Woods is right behind. And as Curtis said, they are on the water. I don't know what's going to happen to our water pressure when 160 units plug into this water main. If we think we have water issues now, pressure is really going to be evident then. So this is what I'm saying. I'm not an engineer. I don't know how long it takes to talk about our elevation. They're saying it's called Upper Hammonds Plains for a reason. The elevation is very high. I understand water doesn't flow up, okay, but do whatever you need to do. You had the money. We got you the money. You spent the money. So find the money again. Also, we have federal money because our MP at the time was Gordon Earl through ACOA, but ACOA gave the caveat that fire protection had to be part of. And when that did not happen, then we lost our federal funding. This is again back in 1999. So the more you uncover, the more you know of the background meetings that happened, not to our benefit. Yes. I apologize, my phone. I have to exit council.
Thank you, Pastor. Before you run, I just wanted to thank you and applaud your relentless efforts to continue to uncover these heinous policies and practices. In my language, we say, "Rinamanyanga riputirwe," which means that which is covered will always come to light. The analogy there means, have you ever tried to put wrapping paper on a porcupine? You're always going to figure out what's going on underneath the surface. So I think a lot of these government institutions are counting on our ignorance at the expense of our health and well-being and safety, and ultimately at the expense of our lives. So as a committee, we have access to various municipal staff reports, presentations that we can request. I'm offering that if you bring these issues to the committee, we could foster dialogue around these issues to make sure that they're prioritized as we work through the executive council, of course. But my point is we have access to, requesting these reports and these presentations. If it's to your benefit, by all means, please do leverage that. We're here to help you to bridge that gap and to not be kind of at the whim of the fact that they're counting on our ignorance. So we're hoping to amplify your efforts, of course, respecting your agency and what you're already doing.
Yes, sir.
So thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much for your time.
So we'll move on to item number 4, business arising out of the minutes. There are no business items arising out of the minutes. Call for declaration of conflict of interests. Do any community members want to declare conflict of interests as a result of any of the agenda items we have? Yeah. If there are none, we can move on to the next agenda item. Number 6, consideration of deferred business. There's none. Number 7, correspondence, petitions, and delegations. Dorothy, has there been any correspondence received by the clerk's office?
No correspondence or petitions have been received by the clerk's office.
Thank you, Dorothy. Members, do you have any petitions?
No, ma'am.
No. Thank you. Number 8, information items brought forward. There are no information items brought forward for this meeting. Number 9.1.1, the Anzio monthly update. The update was circulated. You'll see item 9.1.1, single page document about the DNI Employment Circle Career Fair. I can read that unless anyone from Anzio is going to speak to it. No? Okay. So the DNI Employment Circle Career Fair, residents are invited to join Halifax Regional Municipality and Dexter Construction to explore employment opportunities, gain insights, and learn more about careers in construction and related fields. That'll be happening on April 29th, 2025 from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the George Dixon Center. That's presented by Halifax Regional Municipality and Dexter's Construction in partnership with the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Any questions about that? No. If there are no questions, we can move on to item 9.1.2, the 2024-25 work plan. That was also circulated as one of the handouts. Do members have any feedback on this work plan? We're looking to approve that work plan today. Do you have any feedback on it? It was our take-home assignment from the last meeting. In my notes here, I have that Jerry wanted to bring forward something on the United Nations principles. Do you still wish to share something on that, Jerry?
Yes and no at the same time. We're going along nice and smooth. If we could, it's quite a bit. So, is it possible to? Are we going to complete the work plan now, or could I put it over to the next meeting? I more or less just wanted to talk about the importance of the working group for the United Nations and the work they've done and how we could partner with them. And the thing that I noticed is that they are willing to come to talk to us. They focused on Halifax, and I wanted us to connect with them in some way, but that's as far as I got. I didn't take it any further than that. I have written a bit, but I didn't want to drag it out. It'll take a while. I could start, and you can stop me if I go to.
Do you have, from what you've written, do you have anything that pertains to the work plan itself and changes to it?
No, it does not. It just means, all I wanted to say was that we should connect. In our work plan, we should have them as part, the United Nations has already done work to talk about how people of African descent have been treated in Canada. And this is a worldwide organization, and we should connect with them because they could partner with us and also lobby on our behalf. Because mainly the issue is the Canadian government, they're kind of saying, okay, they're not responsible, it looks like, but they actually have to do more. And this is where the UN has focused on the Canadian government, and they are responsible to encourage HRM and the province to treat us better. So in order for that to happen, we need to listen to them. So the reason I'm a little reluctant, I believe the United Nations people themselves will be better to describe what they do and how we can best utilize their services themselves, if we could invite them here.
Dorothy, Krista, is there any way we can explore the ongoing efforts of related UN working groups and see how we can tie that in, even if it's just information? I'm not talking about inviting a delegation or anything, just how can we learn more about the ongoing work? Mr. Brooks.
Was I really missing?
So the thing that I was gonna suggest is like, we have like the DPED office here, like the African Nova Scotian Decade for People of African Descent. Hopefully this is better. So yeah, so I was gonna say, like, we can reach out to the Nova Scotia office in Cherry Brook and see if we can have somebody from that team provide whatever update they have based on Nova Scotia, and maybe they might be able to invite somebody else that can share, you know, something beyond Nova Scotia in terms of the work that's being done and how they can support what's happening here in Halifax.
I think that's a great idea. They're directly connected to the United Nations work, at least foundationally. Jerry, is that something you'd be interested? Thank you.
Absolutely.
So can we have that as a future invitation, presentation from the NSDPAD? Okay.
So I can reach out and invite them to come, and then I'll report back to the clerk's office, and hopefully we can have them at a future meeting.
Yes, please. Thank you, Russell.
No problem.
Okay.
So this item is still open to members, the work plan 9.1.2. Are there any final feedback items that you'd like to bring forward regarding the work plan? If you are pleased with the work plan, it will be forwarded to the Executive Standing Committee. I hear no objections. Can I have a mover and a seconder for the following motion? That African Nova Scotian Descent Advisory Committee, the African Descent Advisory Committee approve the 2024-25 work plan as circulated and recommend that the Executive Standing Committee review and approve the African Descent Advisory Committee 2024-2025 work plan. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
I'll move.
Moved by Andrew,
I'll second.
seconded by Chioma. Thank you. I declare the motion carried. Item 9.2, community member updates. So again, we're at that portion of the community roundtable. I ask members if you have any updates to share, events, issues, concerns in your communities, things you'd like the committee to be aware of or pay attention to.
Yeah, so I'm looking at, I guess it's gonna be the process of, so what I'm looking at is our greenway that we've started to construct in East Preston. So it's a 4-phase plan, and the first phase is just about completed. Still got to paint some lines and that sort of thing, but most of the stuff for the first plan for the first phase is complete. But I just want to have a conversation around, how can we leverage this committee to be able to, I guess, present and say to executive standing committee and council, et cetera, we got the first phase done. Let's not wait 10 years for the second and third and fourth phases. We want to see that momentum in our community continue with this work that's being done. And I mean, if I was more on top of things, I would have said all this before the budget went through, but here we are. So that I think that's a conversation I want to have, just to be able to think about, these infrastructure projects that are happening in the community that are beneficial to the community. And when people are seeing the value of them, when we're seeing people use this greenway that's been built in the community, I mean, I'm seeing more people walk past my house than I ever have in my entire life. And I've been living there for 33 years, right? So before, you'd see me walking on the road. Now I'm looking out the window thinking, who's that walking up here now? Because you never see them before, because we never had that infrastructure in the community to be able to do that, right? So that's something that I want us to think about, is when we're seeing these projects start in the community, we want to see them finish as well. So I don't know if that's a notice of motion or what the case is. I got to actually, sit down and figure out what I'm hoping to get. But that's something that I want to talk about and bring forward later.
Would you say there's been a lot of positive feedback from the community on the Greenway itself? Because I'm thinking there could be an engagement opportunity that's being missed out on by the city to understand what the next phases could look like, perhaps.
Oh, absolutely. And it was sort of rocky going when we were planning it, when we were first building it, and things come up. They closed down the main road through the community to fix some of the infrastructure that need to be fixed. But what I'm seeing now is that once you see the finished product, you're able to appreciate, that hardship it took to get there. A little bit of pain for a long-term gain. So I'm hearing a lot of really positive feedback on what's completed. Now there are still some issues that the ratepayers community, the ratepayers group in the community is looking at. But there's a lot of positive feedback on what's been completed thus far. And so that's why we're looking at, we've got some people in community who are now starting up walking groups that are going out, gathering together and walking every Saturday. So we're seeing these new things happening because of that positive reinforcement from that completion. Yeah. And so when you're saying about the so when you mention about the, what did you say? Yeah. So when you mention about the engagement piece, I think now is a good opportunity for the city to to come back. So we had initial engagement sessions on sharing the information around the plan. I think now is a good opportunity to come back. We're starting to get into spring. I mean, I've seen they finished the sort of the bulk of the work 2 days before Christmas. And I've been seeing people using this sidewalk, walking trail, greenway. I've been seeing them use it all winter. And so we're only going to see increases coming into spring now and then into summer. So I do think that it's a good opportunity for the city to be able to engage with the community again and see, what are we seeing as the benefits here, and then being able to get feedback around, we're looking at the second phase of this project and how that can be even more of a benefit to the community. This greenway would be accessible to a lot more of the community, the majority, in fact, when we complete the second phase on number 7 highway. So the sooner we get that done, the better is my perspective.
So, Krista, Dorothy, who do we gently nudge to seize this opportunity? I think to re-engage with the community, because I think that's what I'm getting here is we're saying there's an opportunity here to get some of that feedback from the community to shape phase 2. What does that look like for how we get that message to Executive Council, Executive Standing Committee?
And just for clarity, in what you just asked, so with this committee, what I would see as the most relevant piece is to say this first part is beneficial to the community. Let's expedite the second and third phases. That's what I'm saying here. Let us leverage our position here to get that information to them to say we need to see the rest of it happen, as soon as possible, because these are the benefits. In terms of that, what's the word you just used again? Engagement. You feel so I got to go back to bed. In terms of that engagement piece and connecting in that way, our committee in the community does have those connections. So I mean, another push from here is fine. I mean, I can tell you who we have contact with in that case, but that's just an email sent from me to say you fellas need to come out and have a meeting here. That's usually how that goes.
So if we can hear me, it's like one mic is too loud and the other ones aren't. So the report that goes to executive would go from the chair, and there is a section under discussion that if you wanted to elaborate more on how you see the vision for your work plan and outline, and you want to provide a bit more detail. So here's the phasing, here's what we see, and you're essentially, MAPS, you would be taking the information that the committee decides tonight, and we could include that in the discussion section, and that would be passed along to the Executive Standing Committee. And we can certainly, I'd have to look at how past work plans have gone to the Executive Standing Committee and whether the chair was present at the meeting in case there was questions of clarification. But that's something that we can take away if, you want it to sort of be available for questions, or we could have those discussions with the counselors that also sit on this committee as well as Executive Standing Committee.
You good with that?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. So I'll follow up with Andrew around just shaping up that discussion piece, and then we'll see how we can put that forward to the Executive Standing Committee. Okay? Thank you. Any other updates? We're still on the roundtable updates.
I was wondering, could I bring up one more thing? This has to do with the presentation that we had today. This is the HRM's plan for Upper Hammonds Plains. They have designated Upper Hammonds Plains. There's the Hammonds Plains and there's Upper Hammonds Plains. And since we have the council member for that area on this committee, I'm wondering, could we have them connect with the people who were here presenting? And more or less, this document here was done January 2023. So I believe that the HRM is following this document, and this might be why the conflict. And I'm wondering, how do we proceed? Should we have the counselor tell us what's in here? because it's pretty big. They have a big plan for Upper Hammonds Plains. The HRM does. And I didn't ask them when they were here, but I'm wondering, were they aware that the HRM has a big plan for the community? It doesn't seem that they are looking at the interests of the people living there, in my opinion. That's my opinion. And so what I was wondering is, how do we proceed? Could we ask the council member responsible for this area to tell us what this is all about? Is that possible to do that? Or is that too much for one person? I'm not sure.
Devin, do you have a response?
Okay, green zone. Okay, we're good. Yeah, so my name is Devin Paris. I'm the team lead for the African Nova Scotian Community Action Program. And if the council here decides, we can have our ANSCAP team come to present on the community plan that's currently in place in Upper Hammonds Plains right now, and then also the action planning process that will be amending a lot of the bylaws in the community plan. So the community plan for Upper Hammonds Plains right now that was revised in 2023 made revisions to some of the general zoning in the community. So that zoning allowed for multiple developments on a single lot and was allowing for all this development happening in Upper Hammonds Plains. So they made amendments kind of just to immediately stop a lot of that development pressure from happening in community in the short term. And what our team is going to be picking up after that is going to be personalizing the community plan based on what the Upper Hammonds Plains vision is for development in the future. So, yeah. So there was an engagement process back in 2022, and then that report went in 2023. So then at that time, the community just wanted to stop development from happening the rate it was happening. But it's more of a placeholder right now for us to do a more thorough community plan moving forward with community as a partner and having community really guide that. So we can, if the committee would like here today, we can maybe invite like some of the team members and the planners that are working as part of the African Nova Scotia Community Action Program to give a presentation on that.
So the HRM is using this plan as they work with the community, this plan that we just discussed.
So that's the current plan in place for what's allowed with the land use bylaws in the community, but there's going to be revisions moving forward as the community action planning
So
process
they're
moves forward.
working with it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
No worries.
Sorry, Chair. Dorothy and I were just having a bit of a sidebar, and I think I misunderstood the question as the project that Andrew was referring to is separate from the work plan itself. And you're wondering about how to get direction to executive standing committee to undertake that project. Is that correct?
Oh, it was, so yes, kind of. It's separate. What I was saying was separate from the work plan itself. We're good with the work plan. What I'm saying is we have this 4-phase plan for this project that's been approved. What I'm saying is we got the first part done. We want to get the rest of it done, not 10 years from now. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so my suggestion is I want us to be that thorn in the side, aside from our committee and community. I want this committee as well to be saying, there's good work over there happening. This is all that good work. Hurry up and get the rest of it done too. Let's not wait umpteen years before it gets done. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so the committee can make a recommendation to the executive standing committee to request a staff report on expediting that portion of the phases of the project. Yes, so if you'd like to do that, that can be something discussed here tonight or future meeting.
Okay, future meeting for that. And it turns out as well, Krista, that one of our priorities is increased infrastructure in Black communities. So this ties in very well to that. Yeah. Exactly. So future meeting, so can we note that in a future meeting, we'd like to discuss this? Okay, thank you. Are there any other community updates before we move on to the next item? If there are none, added items, number 10, there are none. The next meeting will be on May 8th, 2025, in person unless the committee decides otherwise. We're now at the adjournment. Can I get a mover to adjourn the meeting?
I can move.
Thank you, Choma. Meeting adjourned.
And you're gonna do-